Hey, y'all. Welcome to Cross Politic with the Waterboy. It's good to be with you. It's Thursday at this point. My diet is going well, if you're asking. Thank you very much. And, of course, I'm here with comedian John Branyan. John?
My diet's also going well. Thanks for asking.
Your diet's...
I'm eating nothing but bread. It's the pure bread diet. I have buns and French toast and then a loaf of bread. That's all I eat.
That's all you're eating. And look at you, man. Look at your figure.
Mm-hmm.
So good. And
the Pillsbury Doughboy.
We also have with us Megan Basham. Is it Basham or Basham?
It's actually Basham.
Basham.
I'm being told is appropriate these days, but
Basham.
That's a great name. I wish my name was Basham.
My husband was a wrestler. It was great for him.
That's awesome. So Bash the Patriarch, right?
That's it, yeah.
John, how'd your week go? It sounds like you guys got a lot of snow in Indiana.
We get tons of snow. It's great.
Is that supposed to happen in where you live in Indiana?
Yeah, it happens. It happens from time to time, but it doesn't happen with enough regularity that people have stopped being sissies about it. So everybody's freaking out.
Wow.
Oh, it's snow, and what are we going to do? And people went to the grocery store and bought everything that there was.
All the toilet paper.
Right, because they don't think that we're going to be back. We're not going to be able to get back into town till June now, so we better stock up on provisions. Yeah, we'll be okay. This time next week, it'll all be gone.
Megan, I don't even know where you live, but is it snowy there?
I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina. And I was going to ask him, I'm like, was there stuff, to stock? Because I go to the grocery store and it already looks, we don't have snow, but it looks like we had snow. The shelves are all cleared out and there's nothing there.
That's not from the Canadian trucker convoy, is it?
I don't know, that's supply chain. I don't know what's going on, but yeah, half our shelves are empty.
Charlotte, North Carolina.
Yeah.
How about that? Is it? Do you? I don't really consider North Carolina the South.
It's not. We lived for a few years in Memphis, and that was the South, and I loved it.
Yeah.
That was like sink your teeth into it South. Yep. This is not like that, but it's beautiful. I love it.
Memphis likes their molasses and their barbecue sauce.
Yeah, and I gotta say, Memphis, having lived in both places, Memphis kills Carolina on barbecue. Yeah,
because the vinegar kind of style barbecue sauce, I'm not into it now.
Nah.
Now South Carolina, the mustard barbecue sauce, I'm into that. Pretty good. Yeah, that's pretty good.
And we're really close to the South Carolina line.
That's true. John, do you know anything about all the variations of barbecue throughout like the South?
Nope.
You can't contribute to this conversation at all?
Nope. You guys might as well be talking about cars or spaceships.
You got the McRib up there in Indiana, right?
I do have the McRib. Does that count as barbecue?
That's your barbecue.
I was going to bring that up. I was going to mention the McRib, but I figured you guys would laugh at me.
That's funny, man. The McRib. Megan, don't ever do that. Bring up that McRib in a barbecue conversation with me again. All right. This show is brought to you by Classical Conversations. Supports homeschooling parents by cultivating the love of learning through a Christian worldview and fellowship with other families. Classical Conversations provides a Christ-centered curriculum, local like-minded communities across the United States and in several countries, and we train parents who are striving to be great classical educators in the home. For more information and to get connected, please go to their website at classicalconversations.com. That's .com. Classical Christian, get connected, get community, classicalconversations.com. Cannonball or belly flop, you decide. For thinking Christians, it's no secret that the foundations of American culture and society are crumbling. From the radical acceptance of LGBT plus minus equals John Branyan, whatever else you want to add there, lifestyle, to the infinite selection of genders, we have abandoned any remnant of objective truth. The cancer of relativism has been making its way through our society for decades, and pastors have refused to bravely declare the truth of God's word into this deathly cancer that is killing our country. This is how you get side B Christianity, woke culture in the church, soft complementarianism, and women preachers in the pulpit. The church was embarrassed of certain verses in God's word long before our culture started a little foreplay with relativism. Another way of saying this is that the church introduced relativism to God's word. We started this. And then the world borrowed that play. The world borrowed the play of relativism from us. And here we are in 2022. We have to insist on two things here. and I think this is really important. First, so goes the church, so goes our society. It's not the other way around. And the second, we need to insist that we should have no problem verses in the Bible. There's some hard ones, but don't have a problem with them. What is bubbling up to the surface in our society is coming from hidden sins in the church. From my own experience, I've watched church leaders fall into sexual sin and yet remain in the pulpit. The unaddressed hidden sins of the church are now on full display in the manifestations of our cultural sins. Okay, what's done in secret will come to the light, and this, unfortunately, is coming out in our cultural sins. How many preachers are timid to preach on the sins of homosexuality? Well, for that matter, women who are busybodies in the church. Every pastor knows that one text they're not allowed to preach on in their church. Every pastor has that one text, and they know. The modern Christian church is embarrassed of the Bible. This is why we have church leaders like Ed Stetzer, Russell Moore, Thabiti Anyabwile, Timothy Keller, and on. And if they do end up preaching from a controversial text, they will apologize profusely for what the text actually means, and then wrap up their sermon, if you can call it that, by giving you a moral lecture on how the church needs to be nicer. That's what they do. That's the leadership we have. We've introduced relativism into the church with the text. There's certain texts we don't want to preach from, certain texts we ignore. That's relativism. We're picking and choosing. That's what it is. John, what are your thoughts on that, man?
I want to know what that verse is that preachers won't talk about.
Oh, yeah. You want me to list a couple?
No, I agree with you. It's interesting. Just this week, I had a run-in with a person on staff because their long story, their preacher has impregnated his girlfriend, and so he released a video this week, basically not even confessing. The video was admonishing the church people or asking the church people not to be too hard on the elders for asking him to step down. He's not the pastor anymore, but they're not supposed to yell at the elders. And so immediately they start yelling at the elders for removing him from the pulpit because everybody sins, Jesus forgives us. And so, relativism is a big problem in the church.
Wow. I want to bring Megan Basham. Basham. Wow. You got two ways there, and I want to play with that. I don't know what to do.
I
know. First, let me introduce y'all to Megan. Okay, Megan is a Rotten Tomatoes approved critic. I didn't and the entertainment reporter for the Daily Wire. In her previous, that's very good. In her previous role as an entertainment editor and podcast host for World Magazine, how about that? She interviewed a number of A-list celebrities, including coming on an A-list water break show. She has also written for the Wall Street Journal, National Review, Town Hall, and her book, Besides Every Successful Man, was published by Random House. Hey, Megan, welcome to the water break.
Thank you. Yeah, and I'm giving patriarchy. I'm like, and I do it all from home, right here, not being a busybody.
Amen. Yes. Very good. And the reason why I wanted Megan to come on is because she recently wrote an article for the Daily Wire titled "How the Federal Government Used Evangelical Leaders to Spread COVID Propaganda to Churches." What inspired this article?
Well, it's kind of funny because watching it make the rounds on social media, there's been a lot of accusation that I'm just sort of an anti-establishment girl. And what actually put me on to the Francis Collins angle of this story was, I don't want to name him. He's kind of deep undercover, but a friend who is a seminary professor and runs in establishment circles said, everybody's having Francis Collins on. You need to look into this guy. And I mean, I knew him as the, director of the National Institutes of Health. Like everyone else, I had sort of seen him hailed in a few places, but I really didn't know much about him. And so this friend, maybe 2 months ago, said, you need to look into Francis Collins.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that was kind of where it started.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of evangelicals like Timothy Keller, Rick Warren, they had been praising kind of Francis Collins for kind of being like a Daniel in Babylon kind of figurehead. And then, of course, Francis Collins retired this last year. And But what you zeroed in on was Francis Collins had came on one of Ed Stetzer's podcasts, and basically to push the COVID vax. What happened in that conversation between Ed that really bothered you so much?
I mean, they pushed a lot of things, and COVID vax, masking children.
For the church? Like in church worship services?
Well, I mean, church, he was sort of saying, even, and this was as late as September, just a few months ago. I mean, Collins was still advocating, I don't know that you should be meeting at all.
Wow.
Right. A few months ago. So if you listen to the whole podcast, and he was still sort of saying, you shouldn't, schools could be super spreaders. We need to keep those little kids masked. And then, of course, the big one that connects to the larger mainstream news cycle was this idea that the lab leak theory was a conspiracy and that Christians pushing it. Earlier, Stetzer had done a Christianity Today webinar with Collins, where Collins just very boldly stated that it was nature made. This had nothing to do with the lab, that This is a conspiracy theory. And Stetzer then went on to write a rather infamous now essay warning Christians against participating in conspiracy theories like the lab leak.
Wow.
And and it disappeared. So when I started working on my story,
It's been deleted. It was deleted. Yes. No notes, no acknowledgement from Christianity Today that this article had disappeared. But the Wayback Machine, the little web archive website. Praise the Wayback Machine. Yes.
Right. So you could still go find it, and was able to pull that up. It's kind of nice that you guys name some names, because it felt like when you're a reporter, you're very specific. You get down into the details. And then when you kind of get into this evangelical swampiness, people get really mad at you for naming names. And I'm like, well, that's how reporting works. You have to say what happened with who and when.
Right.
So I was fairly detailed in the reporting, going, here are all the shows he went on. And since you mentioned Rick Warren, I just want to be very specific that, these guys weren't just having Francis Collins on as an option or an opinion that you might consider along with some others. He was the authoritative source. Rick Warren directly said, this is a man of integrity, a man you can trust.
Yep.
So that's quite a ringing character endorsement.
It strikes me that those pastors would probably, I don't know, I can't say that, but John Brannion's little story just a minute ago with the pastor sleeping with impregnating a girlfriend in the church.
Oh, I would say it too, I would name names, except that she's exactly right. You're exactly right, Megan. When you name names, then the Christian will come at you viciously. Now you're spreading gossip. Even if you directly quote what somebody said, you're gossiping, and it's the relativism that you're talking about too. The things that aren't even sin have now been interpreted as incorrect behavior when you're just getting at the truth.
Well, and what Rick Warren's become, what Ed has become, what a lot of these evangelical pastors have become, they become like the pinnacle, the ultimate, the penultimate. How about that? Pharisee, where they're sitting here talking about all these health codes and Levitical health laws that are being pushed on us through, vax or social distance or all these things. But at the same time, they aren't calling out the pastor who's having sex with his congregant. They aren't calling out all these like big E sexual sins that are going on in the church. And yet they're all stuck on, some sort of misinformation, whatever that's defined. That's defined by, I guess, whatever liberals think is true or false or whatever. And these pastors are they're the Pharisaical leaders of our time.
Well, I mean, to kind of pile on that point a little bit, I guess you go, so all of them were, like I said, very, and then in the course of this research, you start looking at Francis Collins, this mighty Christian brother, this Daniel in Babylon, and you look at his record and it turns your stomach. We're talking about,
for example,
he funds research into, not just funds it, but has argued strenuously and publicly for fetal tissue research from aborted babies.
Wow.
So, Christianity Today presented him as a leader in the government who believes in the sanctity of human life. And I go, that's not how I define sanctity of human life.
Wow.
And we're talking some horrific experiments. One of them that recently broke involved grafting infant scalps onto rats, harvesting the organs of full-term babies.
Wow.
And that just scratches the surface. Then you go over to the LGBT side where, you're not going to find a government official in the Biden administration who is not fully signed on to that. And Francis Collins is. He's declared himself an ally. He's declared himself an advocate personally, not on behalf of his department, but he has personally declared himself that, and then funded trans research into given money and grants to researchers who give opposite sex hormones to children who are gender confused. And a doctor who has performed mastectomies on children, girls as young as 13. His department paid for that. Was he directly involved also in that decision-making process, or he was responsible for it all? Head of it. When I started looking into it, you can find, if you make FOIA requests, you can find the actual paperwork where he said, here is our 5-year initiative. We're going to direct, and it's his face and his little personal letter on the front of this little 5-year initiative saying, we are working to direct funding to benefit the health of sexual and gender minorities. That's the term they use, sexual gender minorities. So, I go, I can't personally know what every detail that he knew, but we know he signed off on it and he put his name on these things. And we know he wrote this personal public letter saying, we're doing this because I'm an advocate and I'm an ally.
Were you ever able to get Ed to respond to your article?
No. And I reached out to him. If you follow me on Twitter, I sort of had a famous, just yesterday, it's gone a little bit viral that I was supposed to have an interview with Collins.
I saw that.
It was scheduled. I was sitting there waiting. Yep. 5 minutes went by. I'm sitting in my Zoom room waiting, and suddenly I get a little notification, click, meeting has been canceled. So I wasn't able to talk to him either. So far, I reached out to everyone. No one has responded. Yeah.
Wow. Well, a lot of the evangelical leaders that are kind of in the elitist category, they don't have to respond right now. It's in the same way like the liberals aren't really held accountable for their stuff and their lies and their flip-flopping and Fauci's flip-flopping, is because in some sense they're all part of the same narrative. And so at this point they don't have to respond.
I mean, I guess, a friend texted, it was actually the first friend kind of deep in the bowels of the establishment who told me, go take a look at this. He said, I think Francis Collins hopefully is done on the circuit. And I'm like, if that's the case, my work is done here. And I pray that that's the case, that, that's what comes of this. Maybe they'll never talk to me. Maybe we'll never, they'll never retract those endorsements. But if nothing else, hopefully Francis Collins is done. And by the way, the reason I was talking to him, we had set up this interview, was on some BioLogos. He founded that organization. It's a theistic creation organization. And they are trying to get curriculum into Christian schools and provide it to homeschoolers to reconcile science and faith.
Yep.
So I felt pretty good going, well, I hope also that maybe if the stories are out there, if my story and hopefully some other stories, parents, Christian schools will take a more critical eye when they see that curriculum pass their desk.
Yeah, I know my pastor's written on BioLogos, and I'm not impressed with that organization, and them working with Francis Collins just makes it even worse. And stay away from their curriculum.
It's his organization. He founded it. So.
Wow, he founded it.
Yeah.
What's interesting is that the whole science and faith are compatible. That whole group doesn't. And I'm not speaking to everybody. There's certainly exceptions, but there's a tendency to not go very deeply into the faith aspect of it. They tend to float along on the surface. It's like, look at all of these scientific discoveries proves that there is a God, there is a God out there. And it's like, great, but that's as far as it goes. Then we start to talk about, well, okay, God exists. So what should we do about that? That's when it falls off the rails. And it's like, clearly you're not supposed to support LGBTQ and abortion. You can maybe start with that, but the theology after there is a God just falls off a cliff. There isn't any.
Well, and it seems like you're already compromised when you're saying you're trying to reconcile faith and science. Like, no, we start with God. We start with the scriptures, and everything flows from that. I'm not trying to reconcile science with God at all. Yeah, God is the God of science. Science works because God created it to work.
Right.
So,
well, and I think to be fair to what they're trying to do is they're trying to say that faith is reasonable. Look, there's evidence for God in creation is what they're trying to say.
Yeah.
And we would agree with that.
Yeah.
But the problem is that that's not enough to just be convinced that there is a God because there's order in the universe. Mm-hmm. You have to live according to the way that God wants you to live.
Well, and my understanding is that they, once you get kind of deep into the language of God, the book he wrote and some other things, he takes away some pretty important parts of the Bible, like a literal Adam and Eve, and some elements like that you go, the gospel and Jesus being the second Adam, those things kind of start to fall apart right. Once you take away a lot of the beginning.
Romans chapter 4 and 5, or, rip them out. That's it. So is Collins not a 6-day creationist?
No. No. I mean, I don't want to speak too deeply about this because, that wasn't really the purview of my article, so I didn't research deeply.
Right.
But my understanding, I'm quite certain he's not a 6-day creationist.
Yeah. Well, if you think Adam and Eve are not literal, then everyone I've ran into doesn't believe in a 6-day literal creation either. That believes that. I'm for our next Fight Laugh Feast magazine, which will be out in March, so subscribe now. I'm writing it's on the politics of 6-day creation, and my opening article is basically on those who subscribe, Christians who subscribe to a non-literal 6-day interpretation of Genesis are already going liberal. If you're gonna play with in the beginning God, then how do you know that Jesus was in the ground for a literal 3 days and 3 nights? I mean, once you start playing with literal 6-day creation back here, it's going to eventually, when a ship gets 1 degree off course over 2,000 miles, by the end, that ship is way off course. And that's what I think happens with Genesis. If as Christians, maybe that generation that doesn't believe in a literal 6-day creation can keep their conservative understanding of Scripture, they might be able to keep it, but the kids won't. You will get off course, and starting in Genesis, you're going liberal. So, more on that. Subscribe to the magazine.
Well, I was saying it was interesting. The press materials that they sent me for the interview that never happened. The argument for this curriculum was that kids are drifting away from the faith because they learn science and they don't believe that the science lines up with Scripture, and so they drift away. So you need to adopt our curriculums to keep them from drifting away. And anyway, it was interesting. I'll send it to you guys. You can do your thing on it.
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, thank you. Now we're getting into this is one of my favorite segments here. This is news that John Branning can trust. And now, Megan, if you can hear the music, I don't know if you can hear the music. This is my favorite music. John, can you hear the music?
No, of course not.
Just listen for a second. Just listen for a second. Can you hear that?
Oh, I can.
Yeah. But everyone else will be able to hear it just fine. There's whatever the gate loop for you guys, you might not be able to hear. But John, that's what I've been playing every time when we do news. John Branning can trust. It's great. You got to listen to it.
That makes it. That really does make the whole segment.
It's not your take on it. It's the music. All news that John Branning can trust. You got to start here. This is actually and Megan, just so you know, like all this is real news. Okay, this is I'm serious. It's not a joke. It is real news.
So you can trust it too, Megan. It's not just me. You can trust it.
I don't trust any news. That's my job. But
there you go. But you can trust John Branning's news. Wild pigs in California are so out of hand that lawmakers are considering removing all hunting limits and declaring open season on the hogs. This is news that John Branning can trust. Now listen to this. In California, 56 out of the 58 counties have wild pigs. That's a lot of counties. The swine are inflicting a mounting economic toll in Lafayette suburb in East Bay, where the pig invasion seems almost acute. the language that they're using to describe it. Before the pandemic, the city shelled out $110,000 when pigs were rooting for grubs, churned soccer and baseball fields up like a rototiller. These are wild pigs. The Parks and Recreation Department installed fences around the field to keep a trapper on contract to kill the pigs. Recently, neighbors have been waking up to find their lawns churned into clumpy heaps of sodden dirt. So what they did is they put a field around the public lands and pushed them all out to they put a fence around the public lands and pushed them all out to the neighbors. And now they're destroying all the neighbors. That's in that county. But this is what you get with government regulation. You get wild pigs. Legislation proposed by California state legislator would remove a requirement that hunters buy a $25 tag. Okay, so apparently, in the past you had to buy a $25 tag, and you could only kill one pig. You could only hunt one pig. That was it. And so now we got the wild pig problem.
$25 pig.
Yeah, now you got the wild pig problem. What do you do about that, John?
What do I do about it?
Yeah, I'm going to tell you what Texas does about it.
I thank God that I live in Indiana, and that's one of the reasons that I don't. One of the reasons I'm not a California resident.
I grew up, Megan. I was born and raised in Texas. I now live in Idaho. But in Texas, what they literally go helicopter hunting, and they'll take machine guns up in the air, and they will blast the wild pigs. That's how they deal with the wild pig problem in Texas. Dead serious.
These are actual. They're not like, I grew up in Arizona, so I'm picturing like javelina. It's not that. It's something else.
It's like wild boar.
Okay.
With tusks.
Yeah, I mean they're mean pigs. I mean they could kill. There you go.
Unless you kill them first.
Yeah.
Do they eat garbage?
Pigs eat everything.
They eat everything.
I'm saying, it's California. Maybe they should let them loose in San Francisco and Los Angeles.
They can clean up the streets.
Wild pigs in the streets of San Francisco.
That is really good, Megan. Good work. In LA too.
Mm-hmm.
That's funny.
What could possibly go wrong with that?
Well, it might be a better solution. John, you haven't given me a good solution yet. Your solution was I live in Indiana.
Right. Right. That's all.
I'm just saying maybe we shouldn't see the pigs as a problem, but a solution to another problem.
And if that was a solution to California's problem, that would be that's pretty bad. That's pretty desperate.
Have you been there lately?
No.
I have.
No, you've been there, John?
Well, no, I haven't been there, but I've seen the pictures, and I think the problem with Megan's plan is that no self-respecting pig would stay in San Francisco for very long.
News that John Brandon can trust. Biden claims you couldn't buy a cannon when the Second Amendment was passed. That's what Biden said. He actually said that recently. Town Hall actually tweeted out there's a video of him saying this, and he said, quote, this doesn't can't even finish the quote. This is him. I'm reading his words, so I'm not making any mistakes here, okay? This doesn't violate anybody's Second Amendment right. You couldn't buy a cannon when this amendment was passed. There's no reason why it shouldn't be able to buy certain assault weapons. I don't even know what to say. But he said this doesn't. I mean, is that like two negatives or?
Is it true that you couldn't buy a cannon?
No, you could. You could. The Second Amendment was not regulating cannons.
Okay, so you could buy a cannon.
Yes.
Okay. Well, so what? Well, I don't understand his point.
He's making the argument that the Second Amendment should regulate military or big guns, like an AK or an AR-15, as he would think is a military gun. He would call an AR-15 an assault rifle.
Well, if you had a cannon, that would kill a lot of wild pigs.
Nice. Tied it back in. That's very good. The Second Amendment. So this argument the liberals have put forward this argument for a long time, that the Second Amendment doesn't mean you can have military like a tank or a military bomber or something like that. I'm all for the citizens having whatever the military has.
You think we should have tanks?
Well, I mean that's part of what it means to. to live in a free world, and also to know that the reason why the Second Amendment was so important was because the tyrants had the big guns, right? And
Right.
so for the citizens to be able to protect themselves, well, they should have the right to have the same access to those who could eventually be tyrants over them.
Well, but have you ever been in a parking lot like at Walmart when those people are? Have you ever been in one of those? And people are not driving tanks there. It's just regular old little hatchbacks. And goodness, what a terrifying place that is. So if you had you would have to keep escalating, is what I'm saying. You know, as soon as some high school kid gets a brand new tank for his 16th birthday along with his driver's license, then everybody's going to have one, or else it's not going to be it's not going to be possible to share the road with people who have got armored vehicles.
I'm not.
I have a Prius, Toby. What's going to Gabe? What's going to happen to me if I start sharing the road with people who've got howitzers? And
Well, the good thing is the tank should be able to drive over you, and so
good news for who? Whose good news is that?
for the guy in the tank, you were being annoying in the fast lane, and so he just drove over you. Megan, what do you think about this?
I don't disagree.
Sub. I mean, if we can have tanks, I got a lake out back. I want a nuclear sub, something like that.
That go deep sea fishing, go deep lake fishing.
Mm-hmm. To go like 5 feet down in my little lake right behind my house.
Or nuclear sub.
I would love to have like a tank. Would be so much fun. It'd be great. But I mean, so also to this, John, like tanks shouldn't be on the road. They're tracks. They would just destroy the concrete in the roads.
It's a recreational tank.
Yeah.
Come on.
Off-road tanks.
Well, to protect my family. So if someone comes on my property, I got 10 acres.
Somebody brings a cannon on your property, you're going to need to.
Let's say someone even just brings a gun. Well, I got a tank, and he's not going to come on my property ever again.
You could just leave it. If I see a tank on someone's lawn, I'm probably not going to try to rob that house. So.
That's true. That would be a deterrent.
There you go.
That would be
mic drop, Megan. Thank you.
Beware of tank.
News that John Brandy can trust. Now, this is as real as the news gets, and I got a little story to this. It really is time to face the truth. Pineapple and bacon belong on pizza together. Okay. This is true. And anyone who says otherwise, okay, this is actually an article, not the B. And Doc Holliday, I don't know if that's his real name, who wrote the article.
I'm sure it is.
It's got to be. He's arguing that pineapple and bacon are good on pizza. And I'm 100% for this. My buddies in town, they opened up a restaurant called Wooster's Pizza. Good pizza. But they're trying to do this like, when those people open up a pizza restaurant and they're trying to keep it like authentic or,
rustic.
Well, or just like true to like
pizza.
Yeah, like the artisan pizza thing, and they won't bring bacon and pineapple on a pizza. They don't do pineapple at all. Period. They don't even do bacon. It's just pepperoni and sausage. That's it. I'm like, guys, so every time I go in there to order pizza, I make sure I always ask for the pineapple and bacon. So they say we don't have that. That's it. And then I walk out. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, so see you later.
This is an opinion piece, right? This is not
really news. Yeah, but it came up, and I was like, I really need to address this with my local buddies. So I'm addressing it here on the water break.
Really, you're speaking to an audience of like 3, is what you're saying.
That's right. What, you guys don't like pineapple and bacon on pizza?
Do. I absolutely. We actually order it like with pepperoni. I don't know if that's weird, but we do
pineapple and pepperoni.
Yeah.
Like you do that regularly?
Yeah, regularly.
That's a little weird, Megan.
Like, I don't know if I can trust anything this girl says now.
That's it, yeah. Megan. I'm not reading another Daily Wire article ever.
Credibility is shot.
There should be a disclaimer on all of her articles.
I order pineapple and
pepperoni and pineapple on her pizzas. So take
go.
everything she says with that understanding.
That's great. Well,
I don't have a problem with pineapple.
Do you, John?
I don't have a problem with it.
Okay,
I'm fine with that.
I was gonna say I was gonna mute your mic and say, hey, John, we can't hear him anymore.
We're not on the same page about tanks, but I think we agree about pineapples. So.
Very, very good. Well, Megan, thank you for joining the Water Break. Appreciate your work for the Daily Wire. Keep up the good work. Keep raising godly children. Way to go.
Thanks so much for having me. It's been a blast.
John, good to see you, man. Can't wait for next week. And don't forget, we're going to be in Rapid City. We're actually going to be in Dallas, Fort Worth on March 16th with a live show with Dr. Peter McCullough and Chad Prather. We're going to be in Rapid City with, I can't tell you yet because we haven't signed on dotted line, but we got a great live.
Yeah, but he already told me, so everybody's listening. I already know.
John knows. John does know. John's going to be opening up in Rapid City, and then we're Cross Politics going to have a live show in the Monument, big theater, about 1,600 seats there. We're really excited about being in Rapid City, and we're also going to do a God and Government workshop that day in Rapid City, and Uncle Gary is joining us for the God and Government workshop, and then that night live show with Cross Politics and special guests. And then we'll be in Phoenix in May. Can't tell you when because I don't have the date on that yet, but look forward to seeing you guys in Phoenix in May. So stay tuned. I think tickets will be for sale on February 15th for our March show, and then around March 7th for our April 7th show. So stay tuned for more details, and tickets are going to go fast. We're excited about that. Until next time, love God and go fight, laugh, and feast. This is the Water Break.